Okay, today we're going to be talking about building your own vintage smoker for use in the custom toys, or what you see here could perhaps help you restore a non-working smoker. So we've got going here is I took one of my favorite designs for the smoker, which actually goes back to Tin Tom Toys, which I showed in an earlier video. I'll put a link to that down below. And he incorporated a piston into the smoker unit so that he wouldn't have to design a separate bellows and have tubes between the two and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that he did a couple of things that I didn't particularly care for. One, it's where the piston went, it only allowed for a little itty bitty piece of cotton to hold the soaked oil or smoke fluid instead of a nice large reservoir. So I took that inside portion and made that a reservoir area where we can put the cotton and hold a lot of smoke fluid. And I also diverted it so the air that this piston move comes up from the back side, goes across the heating coil before it travels out. And that makes a big difference on how well the things work. Now these are the parts in this particular design. They'll all print flat without supports. I actually added some supports just to the bottom of this round tube right here, just to keep it round. But it wasn't critical, it'll print whether you do that or not. And I decided that it was easier to do multiple parts with no supports and just glue certain things together than to do, one part with a lot of supports or something like that. So the first thing we need to do is get some cotton, and we need to get that cotton into this inner chamber here, and there's a hole you can see down there, or you can see it from this side. We need to pass that up through there. I shouldn't say that's the first thing we need to do. Actually, the first thing we need to do is to glue this part onto there. So when we pass that cotton through, we can get it through both holes. Otherwise, we'll have a heck of a time trying to fit it through both of them. The front of the nozzle faces away from where the air is going to be coming from the piston. So let's just get some glue on there to seal this puppy up. I guess I could use something there to line it up, something pokey. You could use a paper clip, whatever you got. I just happen to have this little awl sitting here, so I use that to line the two holes up and to make sure that that rear hole where the air passes through is lined up and clear. That'll set up pretty quick, hopefully. I'm going to use this straightened out paper clip to try to jam a little bit of this cotton up through that hole. We need just a little bit on this side of it to wick around the heater. You don't want a big piece. We just need a little bit that we can wind around there, around the heating element that we're going to be making. You can see the white there. What I'm trying to do is to push some of that through. This is the most tedious, well, probably the most tedious part of the whole thing. I can see it sticking above a little bit. I wonder if I grab that with some needle nose, if I could pull a little bit of that up. Almost. These needle nose don't quite close all the way together at the very end. Had a hard life. So I'll go back to poking at it with a paper clip. See if we can get it to come through all the way. Haven't found the hole again. Or I got so much cotton in there that I can't tell when I find it. Oh, this end's just got just the wire. That might work better. This paper clip has got some clear plastic tubing around it. So the end I'm using now is just the wire end. Yeah, I'm not having much luck hitting that. And that's really blocked there, so I'm going to just push that out and we're just going to start again. Just try our luck again. If we can get a few wisps coming through. Oh, yeah, see, we're better off this time already. Got a nice little piece of it sticking through, so that will be more than enough. Then we can just jam some more cotton in there. The cotton is going to absorb the smoke fluid that we're going to use. You can use any light grade oil, 3-in-1 oil, gun oil, sewing machine oil, whatever you want. Even WD-40 works. But I'm going to actually use some train smoke fluid because it smokes really well and it doesn't produce a lot of odor. And since I'm shooting this video in a very small room, I don't want the whole house to smell like it's on fire. Okay. So I got quite a bit of cotton in there. And the smoke fluid up over here. I'm using this Crest petroleum-based smoke fluid. As you can see, here's their number for it. The cotton's kind of fighting me on staying down in there. Because we got to glue a cap on that in a second. And we'll just put some smoke fluid down in there. I don't know how much. I'm going to take this small cap that I 3D printed, put some glue around it. I'm going to make sure I got the glue all the way around it because I don't want the smoke fluid leaking out. There we go. Try to keep it neat because that piston is going to ride in there. Even though that piston doesn't fit snug, it fits real sloppy because it doesn't need to fit snug to just move a little bit of air. I don't want it hanging up on any rough edges from the glue or anything like that. Okay, that should set up, and because I was holding it upside down, the smoke fluid has already kind of made its way to the top. Put that away. Let's prep the piston part just to give me something to hold on to and maybe connect it to some sort of linkage later. I've made this little handle which I'm just going to glue on the bottom of the piston, because otherwise you got nothing to hang on to test everything out. Just like so. And one thing that I had noticed that because this part prints like this and your printer goes around, that means your layer lines, if you hear that, your layer lines are around this way and your layer lines are around that way on this, which means kind of makes some friction this way. So I'd suggest either sanding this down till it's smooth or lightly applying super glue or something and set it up and then sand it smooth. Or in the case of this one, I just took some tape, went around with some cellophane tape, and once you do that, I'm not trying to get a tighter fit, I'm just trying to get rid of that friction. So that's what we did there. Okay. This is going to end up being the top on this whole assembly, but what we need to make now is the heater part. So what I'm using is some 0.08 Nichrome wire. You're going, well, where the heck do you get 0.08? And here's how small it is if the camera focuses. It's fairly strong. It doesn't break real easy. You'd think it would. Let's see if I got on the computer here. I'm going to move you guys just temporarily so you can just stare at the computer screen here. Here we go. So this is on AliExpress, and they're going to call it, you get 20 meters, and they sell it in 11 different sizes. And the smallest size they sell is the 0.08, so that's the one you're going to want to buy. And I ordered this stuff that I got here a couple of weeks ago, and it was 99 cents then, still is, so I don't know. I guess even if it wasn't on sale, it's only $4. 20 meters is going to last you a lifetime, because you only use about 1 inch. Actually, the actual heater distance is about 3/4 of an inch, about 20 millimeters. But you do wrap it around a connection, as you're going to see in a second. So you use a couple of inches of it to actually build this. Now let's get back down here to the workbench. Okay. I've got a couple up here that I've already assembled, but I'm going to show you how to do that. What I'm going to be using, you can use anything you want. Brass, copper, tin, nickel-plated tin. This stuff is sold for people that make their own battery packs and stuff. Again, you can find this on AliExpress. You just need some sort of clean, non-tarnishing metal and cut yourself off a piece of it. It only needs to be about 3 millimeters wide. This is about 6 millimeters wide. I'm having a hard time keeping that in camera. Let's raise that up a little. So I'm just going to take the scissors and make 2 out of this one. There we go. Like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this 0.08 Nichrome wire. Just one revolution around is going to be more than enough. Got a piece of tape on here that I'm using to hold the end of this in place. Now the thing about Nichrome wire is you can't solder to it. So how do you make a connection? Well, in all of the toys, what they do is they get the piece of metal that you can solder to, that you can actually make a physical connection to, and then you take the Nichrome wire and wrap it around that piece of metal quite a few times, 5 or 6 times, whatever, like so. Get it near the end, like that, and then some of the toys only fold it over once, and then they pinch that connection. So they've made a mechanical connection between the Nichrome wire and their other piece. I like to double fold it. Bring it around one more time and pinch the heck out of that. So that can be your connection. Now, some things that you can do if you want, and I experimented with it on this one, is even though you can't solder to the Nichrome wire, you obviously can solder to the brass, the copper, or the nickel-plated tin like you're going to be using for your contact. So the solder can flow around everything and perhaps keep that all secure so it doesn't open up or it doesn't oxidize or something like that. And the other thing you can do, which I have successfully done, if you happen to have the little electric spot welder like I use when I'm restoring tabs on toys, once you get this all bundled up, you can put the spot welder on each side and boom, zap, tap that all together, and that's really secure then. Okay, so there we've done the one connection. In this particular case, the wire is just going to span from one side to the other, so that tells you roughly how far you can go with this, and it's less than 3/4 of an inch. How am I going to hold this? I don't know how I'm going to hold this and stay in camera. You may have to use your imagination on this. Let's just wrap some wire around here and see where we're at. Alright, I'm going to get out a ruler here. And Okay, that's about 5/8. So let me undo half a wrap on this. See where we're at. 5/8 would work. In fact, it'd probably work really well. It's just that it's going to draw a little more current. If you make it too short, then your current draw is going to go up from being in the 300 to 400 milliamp range, depending on how accurate you are on your length, to being closer to 500 milliamps, half an amp. Hopefully some of this is on camera. I can't stare at the camera viewfinder and do what I'm doing at the same time. There we go. Alright, we don't need the extra bit of nichrome wire hanging off here, so we'll trim that. Then on the top part, you'll notice that there's these slits, and the idea there is that we're going to take, let's see, which way do I want to wrap it around? I'm going to stick them in from the front, I think, because I want to wrap the wire back around the whole thing again. See how I'm doing that? And I'm going to bring this around on the inside again. Like so. I'm going to push that on down. So now we have a tab that we can solder to on the outside, and yet that whole thing is being held in place on the inside. Now I think that might have ended up shortening my my length. When I wrapped that second one around, I think I grabbed, unfortunately, some of that nichrome wire and made that a little bit shorter, which would make it really hard to do the double wrap on this side. Let's see if I if I can't get these other ones to work. Well, maybe if I just flip this over. Let's just try this. I don't mind experimenting. No, a little bit too short. Let's just see if any of the others that I wound off camera will work. Let's see if this is going to be any closer. Like so. Will that reach over to the other side? Yes, I think it will. Like so. This actually isn't difficult to do. What's difficult is trying to keep it in front of the camera and yet me be able to see what it is I'm doing. That's the difficult part. Put that one down. Let's do this side. Like so. Every now and then I start and look at the viewfinder and realize I'm not even in the same area. Sorry about that. I should have made the little metal contacts longer on this one. Would have made it easier to tuck that through. So I'm actually not sure what I'm fighting. I'm gonna try bending just the end of it here. Like so. And that. push it on down, because you've got to be able to get a cap on there yet. There we go. Get down there. So you can see that wire is actually pretty tough. It's putting up with a lot of my abuse, and yet surviving. So there we go. And in the end, what we want is that wire and the cotton to kind of all be happy as one piece. Need to make sure, you know, the cotton kind of wraps around the wire a little bit. There we go. Not sure why that wire when I moved that up. All right, I think we're ready. What maybe we'll try doing is just holding the top down on this and touching the battery contacts on, just to see if things are working. If it looks like they're working, then we'll proceed on from there. Since I know I'm not going to be able to hold the smoker, the cap, and the plunger all with just the hands that I've got, I'm going to solder the battery connections to it. What I'm doing is unsoldering the battery connections from the demo unit you saw at the beginning. There we go. And let's just quickly put a little bit of solder on there. You got to be quick. You don't want to melt the PLA. I've got one of the batteries lifted out of the battery holder, so even though I'm soldering these wires on, there won't be any power applied just yet. Okay. I just have the wires applied just yet. Okay. I've got the wires applied. I've got the plunger. And I'm going to drop a battery in. And we'll see whether we're making smoke or not. Okay, I'm seeing a whiff. Here we go. Is that showing up on camera? I don't know. Smoking pretty good here. Yeah, I think you guys can see that. Okay, so that's working. I'm taking the battery out. So what we're going to do now, since we know that all of that stuff is working, is we're going to glue this cap down. Because the less places that the air can leak out other than the output nozzle, the more smoke you're going to get out of this thing. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to just spin that around a little bit like that. Then I'm going to take the wires off temporarily, because what I want to do is I kind of want to seal up the rest of those gaps. Now on the ones where I've made the wires longer, like in this prototype one, actually cut these real long so they could be hanging back, and then I could just put the goop glue all over that to seal it in. I'm a little worried on this one, since I don't have anything sticking out, that once I put the goop on there I might end up gooping it. Now this one I can bend that out for now, like so. You just want something thick that you can seal it with. I guess if you use your super glue, then you just need to use an accelerator so you can set it up quickly. But the nice thing about using the E6000, which was originally sold under the name Goop, is it's so thick that you can just kind of pat it right over that, and it's going to seal up all of those gaps. Now I'm just going to put this all over this whole thing. You're going, well, how's it going to solder onto that? Well, I'm going to have to come back with my screwdriver or knife or something and try to scrape some of that off where I'm going to end up soldering onto this, like so, just to keep the metal clear. But there, I mean, it's basically done. We charged it. If we ever need to charge it again, we could pull this end cap off, or we could drill a hole in there and put more fluid in and then plug the hole either with a piece of plastic or a piece of glue and super glue, or even put a screw in there if you wanted to make it rechargeable. Let's try soldering the wires back on. I'm fully aware that this goop hasn't had anywhere near enough time to dry, and basically I'm just asking for trouble. And I'm also aware that you're not seeing what I'm doing here. Just tip that down. I'm trying to solder the red wire onto the side where all the glue is. I think it's tacked on there enough. Had the soldering gun turned down to its lowest temperature setting so that maybe I wouldn't melt the PLA. And let's drop the battery in the battery box. If you're going to run on a higher voltage than 3 volts, then you have to use a longer piece of the Nichrome wire, which you can do by winding it around like a paper clip or something. Starting to smoke. Does it show up better without my hand there? Does it show up better with... Yeah, it shows up better with that black background. So let's move over this way so you can see how it's puffing away. So the idea is that you would have a cam or something that moved this. Now obviously, if you didn't want to use the plunger, you could build a little miniature fan that would just simply move air into the bottom of this. And you could do it that way. In any case, I thought the link to the Nichrome wire of the right small gauge could be useful if you wanted to rebuild an actual vintage smoker, if it's one of the types that you can take apart, and if it happened to have had a broken or burned out Nichrome wire. Now normally, this isn't being run that hot. You barely see it glow orange if you're in a totally dark room and stare at it. So it's not like it's really normally going to burn out. The only reason it would normally burn out is if someone who was working on the toy tried over voltaging it like some people do. Like, so say the motor wouldn't run, so they hit it with 9 volts, or they hit it with 6 volts, or 4 or something, and it was a 3 volt smoker. That could burn the smoker up. But that's just about the only thing. The smokers are fairly invincible. Normally what happens is the really old oil that they used in the cotton wool in there has dried out and gummed, became tar, and you can usually drop new fresh oil in there and it will help loosen up that tar given enough time, and it'll start smoking and working again. But that's normally what happens, is the oil itself, if it was a small reservoir, is used up so it doesn't smoke, or the oil itself has turned to tar from 40 to 60 years or longer of just being in the real world. Files for this are going to be on Thingiverse if you want to print one and do it yourself.